Mayday here. 82, we have smoke in the cabin.
Channel 72 to contact, pilot maintain.
Good evening and welcome to a special November 2025 transmission of Galactic Terrors, the online reading series that scours the known universe for scary stories, strange tales, weird horror, and all sorts of literary oddities from the most imaginative authors writing in a variety of fascinating genres. I am James Chambers, and tonight I am flying solo at the moment. My co-host Carol Geisander is somewhere backpacking across the English moors, and last I heard is taking refuge in a pub called the Slaughtered Lamb. I don't know. I hear they have a pretty fierce darts tournament there, so good luck to Carol. And welcome to everyone who is joining us tonight. It's great to have you all with us. Please remember to click and subscribe, like and subscribe below to follow future Galactic Terrors transmissions. And remember that typically Galactic Terrors airs on the second Thursday of the month. So this is a special episode that we're doing because I wanted to try a little bit of a different approach to the readings and to Galactic Terrors and to what we're doing, and decided that it would be kind of fun to focus on audiobooks. So this is partly inspired by the forthcoming audiobook version of my Lovecraftian cosmic horror collection, A Bright and Beautiful Eternal World, and by an interest in the audiobook process. So tonight we have a stellar lineup of authors and narrators, voice actors who read us authors' work and bring it to life for an audiobook. And I thought it'd be interesting to connect with all of these folks and kind of talk about various aspects of producing an audiobook and translating somebody's work from the printed page to the recorded file. So I think we're going to go ahead and just jump in and get started tonight since we have so many folks on the program. And I'm going to introduce a couple of our authors who are joining us. First up is Craig DiLouie. Craig is a Canadian-American author of horror, speculative, and military fiction. His most notable works include Suffer the Children and One of Us, Our War, The Children of Red Peak, Episode 13, How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive, and My Ex the Antichrist. His next horror release is a slasher duology in 2026, and you can learn more about Craig at craigdelouie.com. So let's welcome Craig to the stage. Hey, Craig.
Hey, James.
All
Hope it's
right.
not a full moon and or Carol's in trouble.
I think they're okay. I think that was a couple of weeks ago, right? It's so.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and introduce our second author, Damon Manx. Damon is an author with a backstory. He is a recovering addict who spent nearly a decade in the prison system where he focused on recovery and learned to perfect his horror writing craft. In 2021, he was nominated for a Splatterpunk Award for his book, Abigail, and he is the author of the Ojanox series. After struggling with addiction and incarceration, Damon now uses his story to illustrate the positive outcome of sobriety and offer a glimpse at what life can be like when one receives a second chance. So, Damon, welcome to Galactic Terrors.
James, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, it's great to have you both on tonight. So I think we've got our narrators waiting in the studio here with us to come on board. But I thought just one quick question for Craig and Damon before we bring them on to jump into things. Before you became an author, or before you started to bring your works into the audio format. Were you audiobook listeners?
I absolutely was. I had a couple that I've listened to. I wouldn't say like I was a voracious devourer of audiobooks, but there's been one or two that I could only get the book by listening to the audio, and it certainly opened my perception to the whole genre. And I'm kind of glad I did, because now I'm much more of an audiobook listener. So originally not so much, but diving in, it was good to find out about it. And the more I got into it, now I'm finding out like this is a area of literature that you have to be a part of, or you're missing out.
Very true. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say for me, yeah, absolutely not. It was, I'm an older guy, so back when I was buying books before I got published, I'd go to the bookstore and they would have a little section for audiobooks, and you bought them as CDs and that kind of thing. And back then they were really for like busy moms, truckers, joggers, that kind of thing, people who wanted to read on the go. And it wasn't a very big market. And so I kind of like was introduced to it gradually, initially through way back in the day. I was writing zombie books for a little small press called Permuted, and they did a deal with Audible and they brought some of my books in. And then, from there, I was always amazed by the process and what it sounded like. Didn't really quite connect it or get it myself, but then started to do some, while I was working with Hachette and Simon and Schuster, I started doing some self-publishing on the side and decided to do some audiobooks, and they just exploded. And it really gave me not only more intimacy with the art form, but a lot more respect for it, and definitely a real appreciation of how big a reading market that is.
Interesting. Yeah. So I think I had a similar experience. I kind of came to listening to audiobooks much later, primarily when I had to drive every day and decided I wanted to make better use of that time, and started taking audiobooks out of the library. And initially I started by listening to books I had already read, because it was a fun way to revisit books, to hear a new interpretation of it. And then I just branched out as started to encounter audiobooks that were so well read that you recognize this is an art form of its own. There's a real skill and creativity to interpreting a book when you're reading it.
Yeah, and some audiobook narrators are so big, they're like rock stars in their field. And if you partner with a good one, they'll bring you as many readers as your own work would bring your own work. They just have their own fan bases. I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, I think people. Well, we're all we read and we listen, but I think there's a group out there that really just listens to audiobooks.
Yep.
I think that's their primary way of ingesting books.
Yeah, it's a lot of people.
Yeah, which is amazing, and it's a different experience, and I think it's just really popular, and it's well suited to current technology and the fact that we're all constantly on the go.
Yeah, and it's one of the great things about that. Ways in which technology has democratized publishing and access to reading. It's not just the ebook, and it's easier to get published. You can self-publish, small presses flourishing with on-demand printing, but now it's democratized in terms of media. Like there's a whole other medium now, audiobooks, that has exploded, and it's a really big thing in its own right.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we're going to go ahead and bring our narrators on. But before we do that, I'm just going to throw one comment from the chat up here on the screen to embarrass Craig a little bit. Brian Matthews reports his daughter bought him My Ex, the Antichrist for his birthday. All right. Your daughter has great taste in books. That is a fantastic novel. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and introduce our narrators and ask them to join us here. J.M. Wood is a Colorado-based professional audiobook narrator and voice actor. He's a former U.S. Navy Arabic linguist, former professional pilot, erstwhile tall ship sailor, husband, dad, and pug papa. J.M. has pursued other career paths, but returned to the voice acting fold in 2022. He has performed thrillers, historical fiction, mystery, nonfiction, and now horror. Welcome, J.M.
Hey.
Right. How's it going? Thank you so much for joining us.
Great. Thanks for having me. This is great.
All right, I'm going to bring on our next narrator, JP Adams. JP has spent more than 35 years in the acting world and mastered the art of bringing characters to life through voice. He has also been a professional clown, stage combat choreographer, close-up magician, director, juggler, and set designer. All of this led him to follow his childhood dream of voice acting, where he thrives on giving memorable performances with personality and depth. All right, let's welcome JP.
Hi. How you doing? Thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us.
I feel like we should do the Brady Bunch bit, you know.
We're getting there. We got one more box to fill, and then I think we're probably short for Hollywood Squares, but we might make the Brady Bunch.
I want to be Paul Lynn.
Yeah, we'll have to get you in the middle somehow, David.
Yeah.
Next, joining us is Garrett Michael Brown. Garrett is an Audie Award finalist, audiobook narrator, and actor specializing in science fiction, fantasy, horror, and LitRPG. His notable works include Academy of Outcasts, Sylver Seeker, Craig DiLouie's Armor Saga, and Butcher of Gadobrha. With over 90 titles for publishers, including Aethon, Hachette, Blackstone, Tantor, and Audible Studios, he's known for his cinematic performances and nuanced character work. Let's welcome Garrett.
Hello. How are you?
Hey, Garrett. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. JP, you were right. This is either
exactly.
Brady Bunch or Hollywood Squares.
Yeah.
I like it.
There we go.
Yeah.
So, and Garrett, congratulations. We were chatting a little bit before we started that you were recognized this week by the Professional Audiobook Narrators Association.
Yeah, I was. That was a big honor. Thank you. Yeah,
Awesome.
It's called PANA. It's a Professional Audiobook Narrators Association by narrators for narrators. So we get together and talk about audiobooks and how to do better and all that kind of stuff. And every month they nominate someone to be their spotlight, and I got lucky this month. I'm not sure what happened, but it I don't know who I had to bribe, but it worked. It took a lot of money. So it was good. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Congrats. Yeah. So welcome and thank you all for joining us. We're going to talk a little bit about the elements of a good audiobook, but I think before we do that, I'm just curious, the same question I asked Craig and Damon. Have you all, Garrett, JP, and JM, been audiobook listeners in the past, or is it something that you came to later?
I wanted to do this since I was 6, honestly. Back, Craig was talking about old audiobooks back when they were called books on tape.
Yeah.
And my dad would play them. He was addicted, and he'd drive us all over the place to different activities. We started with real easy, small titles like On a Karenina and Morbid Taste for Bones, and somehow that worked. And I've wanted to do it, and I finally got the option, and here I am.
Oh,
That's amazing.
yeah. I actually have been an audiobook listener for a while. I came to it in college after I realized that I was dyslexic. And so I actually got through my first novel ever on audiobooks. And since then, of course, you find ways to work around it. But I came to that joy because my first really good experience of great literature was through audiobooks. And I used to get them on tape and stuff. And I remember Audible when you got a free MP3 player when you signed up at first. That was ages ago. And I've been an audiobook listener for a long time and an Audible member and all kinds of things. But yeah, I've been enjoying Audible, and audio stories for quite many years now. Yeah.
I was a little more of a latecomer to the game, actually. But yeah, so I guess I started getting into it about 15 years ago or so, and I still have an affinity for the printed page if I can. But when I use the audiobooks to fill in the gaps when I can't open a book and curl up.
Yes, definitely. They're good for that. Yeah. But I think it's a different experience too. I mentioned earlier that I started listening to books I had already read on audio as a way to revisit them. And I found I remember them differently. I remember books differently if I listen to them or if I read them, because if you're listening, the visual piece of it, the words on the page is not part of it. And that's something that sticks in my brain. is even sometimes the shape of the words, a font or design or something like that, it becomes part of the experience. So it's really two different things in a lot of ways. And I guess let's go ahead and jump in. And what do people think are the elements of a good audiobook? And I recognize as I asked that different books might require different things. So we can kind of start broad and then maybe focus in a little bit on horror or on books that you've worked on with the authors here tonight.
Are you asking the authors or the?
Sure. Yeah, we can. It's an open question. Yeah, go ahead and jump in. I definitely want to hear from everybody.
I would start with the basics. You need someone who is going to. You want someone who's going to interpret your work because they're going to interpret your work, but you want them to be able to do it in a way that, as an author, ideally you have a little bit of control. Do they have the right voice for it? Can they do accents if accents are needed? There's a basic skill set, and then there's the basics of who they are and how they perform that fits certain types of work, maybe not others as well. And so that was when Garrett and I first started to work together, that it was, he came to me, but it was sort of a happy accident that I was also looking for him. And we ended up having a great relationship that has spanned, Garrett, I don't know how many books, but like in
5 years.
Yeah, 5 years we've been
Armor
working
was
together.
2020. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of words and a lot of books that have done really well, and it's just been a great partnership, and I absolutely love working for him. And then there are other types of books that maybe need a different type of treatment. Like when Garrett and I did this World War II series together, Garrett added some special effects, like very tastefully here and there to kind of punch it up. When my latest, my Ex the Antichrist, this is an oral history, so it's epistolary. So it was 4 narrators, which really just added to the fun, because you had different people playing different characters. And then because it's about a rock band, there was actually music in the book. And so with an audiobook, you can do so much more than what's on the printed page, not just with the narrator, but maybe multiple narrators, or maybe with music or special effects or other types of things. It really is its own medium. And if you treat it that way, the narrator can have a lot more fun with it, and the author can, and the publisher can as well.
No, I agree. And the way Craig writes, it makes it real easy to make a good audiobook out of it, because the characters are very well defined. The stakes are always very clear. It's just like acting, right? I mean, the stakes are clear. The characters are defined. Everyone knows what they want. There's conflict. There's resolution. There's all this stuff. But I mean, a well-written book will become a good audiobook, which Craig does in spades.
Yeah, I was so lucky to find Garrett because I think Armor may have been the first thing we worked on together. And so this is a 5-book series about the crew of a Sherman tank in World War II from Kazering Pass to Berlin. And so you have these guys in this tank, and you have all these different accents, and you have German soldiers who are talking sometimes. Sometimes you have other languages. There was a lot going on there, and he really nailed it. So it was just the perfect first project for us to work on together. Really got to know each other.
Yeah, thank you for that.
I think I went through about 40 or 50 auditions before I actually came across JP, which was like a blessing when I heard his audition for the Oceanhawks. Scream in the Dark. The Oceanhawks has, I think, about 100 different characters. The original draft was just a little bit shorter than the unabridged stand, and then we broke the book into four separate books. And JP had a different voice for every character in the book, but more so, like the word gravitas is what comes to mind. I wanted a narrator who had command and this gravitas when they were doing the narrative prose, because there's also a part where it's a cosmic horror meets coming of age, but there's a creature that we hear the creature's voice throughout it too. And when he did that, like, he delivered the sections to me, like, one at a time, and it was like I was listening to it for the first time, and it was like I was reading it for the first time, having not even written the book. Does that make sense?
I know that feeling well.
Yeah.
Yep, you're out. You nailed it.
And yeah, like I would get chilled when I would listen to the segments and the chapters. I'd just be like, well, that's something. Yeah, it was really good. And I went through ACX Audible and found JP through there, and we've gone on and we've done a collection since, but which was not nearly as encompassing as the original. But we just I don't think JP even knows we just won Best Novel Award in the Sacred Crypt Awards. So
Awesome.
pretty cool. We got Best Novel, so that's
fantastic.
That's great. Yeah, congratulations.
It's very cool. So
Yeah,
that was
well, thank you.
JP's is probably a little different than mine.
Well, I mean, I think any good narrator, reader, actor will probably say something similar. But one of the things I really appreciated, and especially having worked with some other authors and auditioned for many more books, is it all starts with a great audition, which starts with a great selection to audition from. Because so many times we'll come across something and I'll read a piece that's an author wants me to audition for, and I'm like, what is this giving you? This is someone discussing, groceries in a very banal way that doesn't give anything about character, about story, and an author will give nothing. But the one thing I really appreciated, Damon, that you did is in the piece, you very much said not only what it was, but what you were looking for. And you gave, us that auditioned something with some meat on it, that we could really show you something that you wanted to see and something that had, a really good legs to stand on, and which is great. And again, having well-defined characters always helps because, voice acting is acting. And, so to have some really great characters with some meat on it that you can really dive into is fantastic. But yeah, I think it just started with so many things when I read, and I read your audition piece, and I'm like, this is something that I'm excited to do. This kind of grabbed me right away. The piece that you did and the way you presented it, it was very, I'm clear. I know the assignment. I know exactly what he wants and what I'm looking for. And so it really gave me something great to build on. So I think, that's fantastic. It starts there with great writing too. Yeah. And a really good audition description and piece. Yeah. Yeah, for me.
Yeah, it's one of those things where very often there's kind of something that's said that a good voice actor can polish anything, polish a turd, polish make anything, make bad writing sound good. But I can't tell you how much, what everybody said here is exactly right. Good writing, it makes it so much easier. And it makes it, it just kind of allows things to flow. It allows a natural connection to the work that is going to come, hopefully will come through in the presentation, in the audiobook itself. So
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because there are a lot of different styles of audiobooks, and Craig, you were mentioning multiple narrators and sounds and things like that. And up to a certain point, most of the audiobooks I had listened to were a single narrator, single actor doing the full text. And then I listened to an audiobook version of Lincoln in the Bardo by George Saunders. I don't know if anybody has listened to that. It was like a cast of thousands. And they had a lot of prominent people on it, a lot of voice actors, but also just actors, celebrities, because the way the book is written, there are a lot of really short passages and short pieces of text, and it just alternated voices. And it was such a wild experience that it kind of opened my eyes to, well, you could do a lot more with an audiobook than just, it's not just sitting there listening to someone read it. There's so much to it. And that kind of gave me a better appreciation and a better ear for listening to audiobooks. But I think for me, when I'm listening to them, what I enjoy most is when the narrator sort of is the voice actor, the narrator is there. You're hearing them, but you're not aware of them in a sense. It's, it's almost like reading when you're just in the zone and the story is just carrying you along. And I had the same reaction, JM, listening to your reading of A Bright and Beautiful Eternal World. There were pieces there where I have to admit, I was like, hey, who wrote that? That was really but to be honest, there were a couple where I was like, I could have condensed that a little bit, which is all, all me. Writing. Like, yeah, that maybe was a little bit longer than it needed to be, but it's kind of eye-opening to hear a completely different interpretation of your work. I think as writers, we hear characters' voices in our head. We have an idea of who they are, what they sound like, and only a portion of that makes it onto the page because, we don't want to overwhelm the readers, let them have some room to let these characters live in their own imagination. And then somebody else comes in and gives this amazing performance of your characters. And it was interesting in some cases where an interpretation synced up pretty much with what I had heard and where it didn't. And it was really a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's you can shape that is as part of the process. If you have a certain thing that you have in your head about a certain character or whatever, getting into the preparation process, that can be part of it. And authors, there's two extremes with when you're working with somebody, and one is that they want to be a director and give you line reads on individual things, and then and be really micro involved, and the other extreme is here's the text, good luck. Have fun with it. I'll see you on the other side. The first time I taught German, that was the way they threw a textbook at me and said, "See you at the end of the semester." Okay. But it was, so Jim, it was fun with this one because we were skewed to the freedom side, and so I think, and because a lot of this was a series of short stories. Yeah, I'm not surprised you were surprised sometimes. But
always in a good way. I mean, there was nothing where I was like, "Oh, that's so off target."
Oh,
no,
gosh.
it was all just, I didn't think of that, but wow, it really works, kind of stuff, which was cool.
That being said, if there are any authors watching tonight and you're interested in this and developing this for for yourself, I would say try and give the narrator at least as much guidance as you can. You don't want to micromanage, and you are going to have to deal sometimes with an interpretation. It's not going to sound like it sounds in your head when you hear it, right. Which actually can be really magical once you get used to that. But that being said, there are some things that maybe are musts, like, this character, like who is the narrator is often going to want to know, like, who is this character? How old are they? Like, try and get a brief sketch so they can kind of flesh that person out and bring the right interpretation from the get-go, just like an actor would. Ask, like, what's my motivation and who is this person and what's their story, that kind of thing. My first audiobook where I did it, where I did it self-publishing, I wasn't with a publisher, I was lucky to work with R.C. Bray through Gallery Books with Suffer the Children, and then he came to me and wanted to do a deal, and I had this experimental self-published series called Crash Dive about submarines in World War II, and kind of like Horatio Hornblower on submarines in World War II. And so we worked together on that, and it exploded, which probably half the sales were due to him because he read The Martian and he blew up. But there were things I had to tell him, like, you can't say submariner, you have to say submariner. And because people who worked on submarines, who served on submarines, are very particular about this. So you have to kind of give as much as you can to the narrator, help them to help you, but definitely don't micromanage.
Yeah. So Garrett, go ahead, David.
Too much.
What was that?
What?
At this point, I'm hoping I didn't micromanage too much. I don't think I did.
No, not at all. And in fact, you were very open to having something that works, but not be what you envisioned. And I think you were very open to that. And you're absolutely right. I think interpretation is always the right word. You come to something, it's the difference between, someone says, oh, I'm a translator. No, I'm an interpreter. And so when you give something like that, just like a playwright would or anything else to a reader, an actor, you're open to that. And I think you were great. You were great with feedback, which again, I think you're absolutely right, Craig. That feedback is essential, and it becomes very much a collaboration. And things that we may not know about the text, we do rely on the authors to kind of say, hey, this is something you may not know. I researched this, I wrote it, I know. And but then having the authors also, like you or Damon, be very open to, that wasn't something I envisioned, but being open to the fact that it works. Or not, and tell me what you did, and it's great. We can adjust that. But I think that collaboration is so essential. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, when you're dealing
with
I think
as an
ACX,
author, you have to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, please.
Well, I was just going to say, as an author, you have to respect the people you work with. They're artists, and they're doing their thing. They're trying their best, and so like you don't want to issue like a whole bunch of notes. They don't want notes. But if you have a character, it's like, hey, you had this character kind of being jolly in this scene, but he's actually really depressed. You want to make sure that comes through in the interpretation, and something was missed somewhere, either in your telling or their interpretation. So that kind of thing would be a correction, or things like submariner versus submariner, but things like that. But otherwise, you kind of want to leave it alone and let them. It's like someone's going to make a movie of your book. It's not going to be your book, and that's okay. It's going to be its own thing. Like, it's almost like audiobooks. It's just like you were saying, James, where they kind of transcended the book and became something new. I look forward to that every single time one of my audiobooks is made. I'm like, do that. Turn into something new. It's the original vision, but it's its own medium. It's its own piece of art that happens to share the story of the novel I wrote. And I would think the same thing if there was a film adaptation and so on and so forth. But so I welcome that kind of collaboration.
So, JM, you were going to say something too.
Well, as far as the collaboration goes, ACX has kind of formalized that in the process, right? I mean, you have your opportunity to do the 15-minute check, and but it's really important if you're doing that. If something is really important to you as an author, identify that and say, I'd like to hear this bit as part of the 15-minute check. It doesn't have to start from minute 1 and go until 15 minutes. What I'll do is often I'll splice 3-minute sections from different parts of the book, and say, but I may not get what you want, right? If it's up to me to just pick parts of the book and give you samples of this is what you're going to get, then if something is like really like precious to you, then you put it in there. Like, say, I'd like you to get, hit this part of it too, so I can get an idea of what that's going to be like. Because after that, it's really difficult, right? I mean, after that, we're kind of like you're kind of we're unmooring the boat and off we go, right? And we'll see on the other side. And if we really miss the mark somewhere, like if we've really, the books filled with Submariner. At the end of the thing, there is an opportunity to fix that on the backside, but artistic choices are it's important to get those ironed out early on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
even
think that
after all
was
the books, Garrett and I'm sorry.
I was just going to piggyback on that. I think, JM, that was something that we talked about early on, were sort of the artistic aspect of it. And I think I provided you with a list of all the weird place names and character names and creature names with a phonetic pronunciation guides to kind of help with that, because there's a lot of Lovecraftian references in my book, and so those things can be weird. But we had a couple of conversations about your artistic approach, and you mentioned that we were more on the free hands-off side, and I think that's largely because I just felt really comfortable with how you were thinking about the book, and really loved the clip, the 15-minute piece that you read, and thought, yeah, okay, this is I don't feel a need to impose play director on this, and I would I think it my philosophy as in general is, when collaborating or working on creative projects with multiple people, is get people queued up to do their best work and stand back, let people do what they're good at, and I hope you didn't mind that.
No, it was. I appreciated the thing, your approach. There were times when I coming up with good characters for some of these stories it was definitely a fun creative project, but it's normally a book is a novel, right? And you make your character choices, and it's your main character, and that's the same character throughout the book. Each story is its own preparation project when you're dealing with an anthology of short stories. And so all of those things are fresh every time. Every story, that process has to be repeated every time. So there was quite a lot of preparation work to do the anthology because of that, and that was so it made it very difficult for me to if we're going to collaborate on characters or different things, when everything's changing so much over the course of the entire anthology, it makes it difficult. And I really appreciate the trust you put in me to make those choices. I mean, I could give you the tip of the iceberg, and then the rest of it was, wherever I could come there.
That was part of the fun for me. But I think we did promise the audience some readings tonight, so I think maybe it'd be a good time for.
Oh yeah, yeah, that's right.
I'm gonna briefly share the cover art for this. I thought that this would be available on Audible by now, but Audible is running a little behind in approving stuff, I guess. But A Bright and Beautiful Eternal World will be available on Audible imminently, and I think we're going to turn things over to JM for a little bit of a taste of what's in the book. JM, over to you.
Okay, thanks. I was hoping they'd get it out by Halloween, but there we go. So I'm going to do this just to give you an idea of how this works, and for the audience, I'm going to do this punch and roll style, which means it's not going to be a clean, error-free read all the way from top to bottom. I'm going to read the entire introductory 2.5 pages here. And so it's there will be stops. I'm going to need to stop and I'll have a dry mouth, and if I make a slip, I'm going to go back to the beginning of the sentence. And so this is the way that the process works in the booth on a live basis. So anyway, because people may not know that, they just a book just magically happens and everything comes out of your mouth error free. Anyway, introduction. Welcome to Nixport. Population frightened. If you travel to the north shore of Long Island, where hills, valleys, and shorelines deposited by a glacier more than 10,000 years ago define the geography, you won't find Nixport. At least, not if you travel by map, GPS, or main roads. To reach Nixport, you must lose your way on lonely, tree-shaded roads that wind and curve through the grooves of time and reality, past marshlands and pockets of deep woods tucked into a suburban landscape growing like verdigris clinging to rock. Nixport exists in the fragments of places and times. The part of Long Island governed by the Connecticut colony where the witch trials occurred in the 17th century. The house where Jack Kerouac lived for a time, and the bar where he drank. The hills where a teen murderer flirted with a non-existent devil in the lost 80s. The pocket cemeteries where headstones tilt askew in the soft earth, and the secluded nooks of woods, trails, and waterways that line the shore of the deep Long Island Sound. Only 50 miles from New York City, yet far enough to constitute another country. If you find your way to Nixport, you can walk Main Street, admire the ships moored in the harbor, stop in at Raker's for a drink and soak up the local lore if the bayman deign to speak with you. You can smell sea salt in the air and watch the sun set over the harbor. You can walk past shadows, inexplicably more solid-seeming than they ought to be, and follow the rails of the long-gone trolley line embedded in the street. On hazy nights, you can sit in a park by the water and hear a distant, bellowing foghorn. You can sample the local fare, but you might want to skip the seafood. Beneath the surface of this town and its waters lurk secrets and history. Monsters hide here. Openings into other worlds appear in unexpected places. Nixport conceals a nexus where cosmic terrors beyond human understanding gather. Evil and horror made itself at home in this town, though no one can say when it first arrived. It taints the place and its people, haunts them, keeps them lying awake on nights when the wind howls, rain pours down, and restless waters stir things and memories better left undisturbed. People go missing in Nixport. More people go missing in Nixport than normal for such a small town. They slip between the cracks of the daylight world into quiet houses, rough trails, cold waters, and realities that exist only in their mind, into a realm of existential horrors and occult secrets. Ask Spence behind the bar at Raker's about it. He might throw you a bone. He might not. No one in Nixport likes to talk about the town's dark soul, but sometimes they must, if only to remind themselves of their humanity, and Spence has seen it all. Knock on the door at the old Marish place if you dare, but hope they don't answer. If they do, you might learn something, or you might vanish into the dark, dripping rooms within. Stay a night at the Osprey's Perch bed and breakfast, but stay in your room, and make sure you check out on time and decline any invitation to visit the wine cellar. Enjoy the secluded beaches, but leave the flotsam and washed-up crab shells where you found them. Don't risk bringing anything home with you. I first visited Nixport more than a decade ago when Alan Kozowski published Refugees in his magazine Alan Kay's Inhuman. I returned there in 2010 to write The Engines of Sacrifice, a collection of 4 novellas, then again in 2015 to chronicle the tale of Spence and Big Gene and the odd quahogs Gene raked up from the Sound. In 2017, I heard A Song Left Behind in the Astakia Hills and realized Nixport's hooks bit deep into my soul. I can find my way there easier and easier now, like the path remembers and welcomes me. I don't like to visit too often. The stain of it lingers longer after each extended stay, but the town calls to me always. I returned from there not too long ago with a mad assortment of terrors and insights from this forsaken place, collected here as window and warning. Spence knows my drink now, He pours it stronger for me. He pours it stronger every time I walk into Rakers. I don't like to think about going back there. Maybe this most recent visit will mark my last, except voices from the town whisper to me except voices from the town whisper to me in the night, in my sleep, and in my dreams. Faces of those who live there, human and otherwise, beckon me back. If this is your first visit to Nixport, welcome, but be warned, it's unlikely to be your last.
Thank you.
Yay.
That was great.
Fantastic.
So I have a question based on that, because I don't, the way you were reading that, if you were recording, would you use the same technique where you just backed up a few words at the beginning of the sentence and then continued?
Yeah, it takes just a second to place the cursor on the track and right at the end of the word, and then it rolls through the last few words, and then you just pick up where it left off.
Oh, okay.
So you pick up and most of the time I wouldn't pick it up right in the middle of a sentence. I usually there's a 0.7 second or so pause between sentences there, so it'll go, the cursor will go between there, and you start recording fresh, like a fresh new sentence, or if there's a good comma, something like that. So yeah, that's the technique though.
Wow. And then you go back and edit out the bits that weren't right.
If you do it right, you don't have to do any editing. It just happens. The recording just punches in, and it's seamless. And if you can make a mistake with a breath, and then you have to edit that. But if you don't, if you wait until the recording starts, and then have a natural breath and start and keep going, it works great.
Very interesting. Okay. Yeah, that's something I learned. That's great.
Yeah, the tone and voice were perfect for that collection, James.
Really nice.
Which I read and enjoyed.
Yes, thank you. Well, I should say
did
that
it justice.
you kind of, this is all your fault, Craig, for enjoying that book and introducing me to Garrett, and Garrett introducing me to JM, and here we are. So it was kind of a nice, happy set of circumstances.
Well, I'm glad it all worked out.
Yeah.
Very grateful. Yeah.
I got to pick that up. I enjoyed that a lot. It was really good.
Definitely.
James writes killer modern H.P. Lovecraft interpretations, like just amazing stories.
That's really good. So the language is just amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
You're talking about those names. It's like, well, why are there only vowels in this?
Yeah.
I'd love to see that pronunciation guy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not from the East Coast, so it's like a lot of when
Yeah,
I need help.
Yeah.
Well, Damon and JP, why don't you tell us a little bit about your process or the books you've worked on? So you've done more than one project together.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah. So what we did, the first one was the Ojanok series, which was a 4-book series. And we talked about that going into the project, saying, this is we're looking at close to 400,000 words of a book here, all said and done, which we did. We put out the 4 books that you can get separately in the Ojanok series on Audible, and then I put it all together in an omnibus version, a 32-hour full thing.
Wow.
32 hours and available in an omnibus, which is now the best seller out of them all. And then we went on, and I had a short story collection, which is very different than the Ojanok, completely different. And JP nailed that one too. I think it was probably a little easier to do the collection, I imagine, but.
Easier is always relative. It's great. And what I enjoyed seeing was, after the 4-book series, seeing you really stretch yourself as a writer, because those stories have such a varied setting and theme and tone. And it was just fascinating to me. It's like you thought you knew Damon Manx as an author, and then you read these other things. It's like there's so many more levels. You are the literary onion, my friend, and much more fragrant, I hope.
I think I prefer
but yeah, it was that's why it was so much fun for me as a reader too, having done a 4-book series of your stuff and then seeing these short stories. It's like, wow, there is so much more, because it was fascinating, a lot of fun. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, man.
There we go.
So that's where we did. You would how about I introduce this little piece that JP is about to read for you? Would that be good?
That would be excellent. Yes, let's hear.
Good.
So just as a little preamble, it's 1979. The isolated mountain town of Garrett Grove, New York is getting ready for Halloween. It's just 1 week away, but 3 of the kids in town have gotten very ill. They're in the ICU and the doctors have no idea what's wrong with them. Chief of Medicine, Dr. John Malcolm, who should have retired a couple years ago, is going to see one of the children. But John can't retire. He lost his wife, Rosie, about 2 years ago, a year to 2 years ago. And Chilton Medical Center is really all he has left, and the people of Garrett Grove. And with that, here's JP Adams.
Thank you. And thank you very much, Jam, for setting up the fact that these are not perfect. So I appreciate that very much. All right, so here we go. Dr. Malcolm passed the young candy striper on his way to the ICU. He nodded, and she returned the smile. The girl's name tag said Cindy. Not Cindy with a Y at the end, but Cindy with an I. She looks like a Cindy with an I, Malcolm muttered under his breath. The girl was blonde, young, somewhere around 18 to 20 years old. He wondered if she had a crush on Dr. Ziegler. Now that was a contagion most of the young ladies at Chilton had contracted. Before entering the ICU, Malcolm stopped in the changing room. He donned a protective paper gown, face mask, and eyewear. He also grabbed a fresh pair of surgical gloves. Now that they knew they were dealing with a parasitic bacterium, he didn't want to take any chances, since the method of transfer was still unknown. The protective garb reminded him of his time as the head of surgery, back when Rosie was still alive. It had been a happy time for them. They'd been younger, and Rosie had still been relatively healthy. At least she hadn't been extremely unhealthy. His hair had been dark and thick, and Rosie, who had always been a full-size woman, was still a bit curvy. For some reason, John had done a lot more reflecting today than expected. He took a long, deep breath, hoping to catch a scent he wouldn't find, and he left the changing area. The intensive care unit consisted of 6 individual rooms, occupying an independent wing of the medical center. Here, all the critical cases were referred, as well as any patients who required solitary confinement. Since the Boyle child was the first to be admitted, Dr. Malcolm walked down the hall and opened the door to check on him first. The room was bathed in a brilliant white light, so intense Malcolm's eyes were unable to adjust. Without warning, a sharp pain centered in the middle of his forehead. He grabbed his temples and nearly collapsed. Then his ears started to ring, loud and intense, like a whistle being blown inside his head. He rocked back and forth, swaying to a melody that only he could hear. For a brief moment, John possessed the clarity to realize something was wrong, that he was in mortal danger. But the thought was silenced as if a blanket had been thrown over it. The ringing in his ears faded and was replaced by words he couldn't quite understand. And then he smelled it. Faint like the first flowers of spring, their fragrance caught on the breeze and carried through an open window. It lifted from the room and caressed his senses, gently but growing stronger by the second. Estee, Rosie's perfume. But it was impossible. He had used the last of the bottle over a year ago. Still, it was as real as the memories that flooded his head and the voice that spoke to him. He heard it clearer now and could almost make out the words. "Come, sit with me, John," the voice said. "It's been so long since you sat with me." John Malcolm knew that voice. How long it had been since the last time he heard it. But John was so tired, found it almost impossible to keep his eyes open. He had no idea they were already closed. The voice spoke again. "John, come sit with me." "It can't be. I have to be dreaming." John Malcolm forced himself to open his eyes and focused on the figure sitting on the bed in front of him. The room wavered like a mirage, and the image faded into view. She sat before him, smiled, and patted the bed beside her. Come sit with me, John." He continued to sway in place, and his vision grew clearer. "Rosie? What are you doing here?" he asked, an uneven smile infecting his face. Rosie Malcolm sat on the bed, wearing a dress John had bought her over 20 years ago. He couldn't remember the last time he had seen it on her, but it had always been his favorite. Her hair was exactly the way she had worn it back when he was the head of surgery. She would set it in curlers for hours to get it just right. John remembered she called it a bouffant. He thought it made her look like a net funicello. Rosie looked good, exactly like she did in his dreams. "What a silly question. I'm here to see you, of course," she said. "Now, come over here and sit next to me, handsome." John was propelled across the room, no longer in control of his own body. His arms hung limp at his sides. The clipboard fell from his grip and landed on the floor, the papers it held scattered. But John didn't notice. He stared into Rosie's deep, dark eyes. They were so dark they were almost black. Rosie had green eyes. The thought was silenced. He was drawn toward her as if a rope were fastened around his chest. There was no sense in resisting. Not that he could if he wanted to. John's mind and body were no longer his own. "Rosie," he said. A thin veil of saliva fell from the side of his open mouth. "My Rosie." His feet slid against the floor. Rosie's smile grew wider. Her big, dark eyes focused intently on John as he approached the bed. Somehow they grew darker and wider. A strange thought echoed from somewhere within, something John had seen once in a cartoon. "Hey, Rosie, what big eyes you got to have." A noise escaped from deep in his throat. It was intended to be a laugh, but it was closer to a whimper. Rosie's smile broadened as if she knew what he was thinking and found it funny herself. Then she opened her mouth and smiled, exposing at least 3 rows of razor-sharp teeth the size of broken chiclets. "Hey, Rosie, what sharp teeth you got to have." There we go.
Nicely
Good stuff.
done.
Wow. Very, very cool. And I'm just going to pop back up very briefly. I had shown the cover earlier, Damon, while you were talking about it. But now that you brought the teeth back, I thought I should
Exactly.
give folks another look at
That's great art.
that Trojan X on the cover.
The whole thing.
That was great too. Very good.
Nice
Fantastic.
job there, Paige.
Well done.
Had a radio play feel to it.
Totally.
Good. Thanks.
Yeah, and it's one of the, and it was a great scene because now I need to know what happens next.
Exactly.
was.
Nothing good for Dr. Malcolm, unfortunately, but a lot of other things. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we did that. Every scene in the book pretty much ends like that. Like
Oh,
every
yeah.
scene is a cliffhanger, so that and then we go to somebody else, like on the other side of town, for about 10 pages. Yeah.
But I have a quick question for Garrett, JP, and JM. And Damon, when you mentioned your omnibus edition is 32 hours, it sparked my wondering. When you look at a manuscript, when you first get started, do you have a method of estimating how many hours of recorded time it's going to be? Because I know when we did a Bright and Beautiful Eternal World jam, I estimated it too short. I think I had put it in at 10 hours and it turned out to be a 12-hour read or something like that. And I remember looking at that and thinking, gee, I wish I knew how to do this. So I'm just wondering, you guys are the experts. Do you have a method for figuring that out?
I usually estimate an hour of finished recording at 10,000 words. So it kind of works out that way. And I'll do 20,000 words a day. So 2 finished recorded hours a day, kind of a thing. And the longest book is 26 hours, I think. A single book. Craig's is longer. Armor was 5 books that were 6 to 7 hours each, I think.
Yeah, the omnibus.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's
People
about
love
30.
those omnibuses because they can get the whole shebang for a single
Exactly.
Audible credit, and your sales go through the roof.
Yeah.
Everybody gets good value.
Good.
Yeah, that was Jim. That ours was yours. 117,000 words. Is that?
I thought it was about 100,000. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Typically, my rate is yeah. It kind of varies actually. It's anywhere from ACX uses 9,300. Audible, like they'll that's kind of their standard baseline estimate is 9,300 words equals 1 finished hour, but it depends on the story, right? I mean, some stories want a little faster pace, and then some stories want you to chew it a little more. So I come in right around 9,700 usually. I think is about 95 to 9,700 per hour. A little on the slower side.
Yeah, I think about 100,000 for an hour as well, something like that. Sorry, 10,000, and yeah, it's like it's really fast.
That's fast.
But yeah, it's really And the one thing I had to notice too is that being an audiobook listener as well, I heard Kate Redding, the great audiobook narrator herself. I saw a post she made once that she said every time a listener speeds up an audiobook, a narrator dies a little. And so and it's interesting because I know that everyone always does. And there's always that thing I find myself going a little fast sometimes too. And with this one, I knew it was probably going to run a little longer than what you wanted. So I sped it up some, but yeah, but you're right. It really does depend on the story. You want to make the pacing give the best read to give the best interpretation to, bring the story to life. And so it's sometimes hard to say that always this word count will always be a certain amount of time because, you want to be able to have that freedom to sometimes say, I need to spread this a little bit more, or, we don't want to spend 4.5 hours on dinner, every once in a while you'll have that thing. It's like, Game of Thrones. It's like, yeah, we get it. It's a long ride in. So yeah, it can vary a little bit.
Great. Yeah, that's very interesting to kind of take that into account, that what the story requires is a big factor in the pacing. But I guess Craig and Garrett, you two have worked together quite a bit, and so what the omnibus edition of your books, Craig, is like 35 hours or so, roughly,
something like that.
Right around there.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah, we've been working together since the early 2020. What an interesting time that was.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, come up on 6 years. That's wild. But yeah, Craig. I give Craig a lot of the credit for kind of getting me started seriously in all of this. It was he took a chance on a complete no-name narrator. I think I had 4 books under my credits at that point. And I just reached out to say, hey, I really loved Crash Dive. And you had written another one that I just read too about the Civil War. It was fantastic. And he let me audition, and it's been awesome ever since. We just finished our 10th book together.
Wow.
It's impressive. What was the most recent book?
The most recent is it's actually called Castles in the Sky. It's an awesome World War II story about B-17s and this crew on their flight on their last bombing mission. Yeah, on their last mission. It's fantastic. JM was talking earlier about how your writing had changed, or someone was talking about how writing had changed. Oh, I'm sorry, it was JP. Stretching and changing. And Craig's, I've known your writing for half a decade at this point. I've recorded your stuff, and this last one was just different. I don't know what it was. It was more cinematic or something, but it had a different feel, and it caught me in a different way. And I just love that about this industry.
Well, it's the same thing for a writer as for you as a narrator. Like, the work wants to be told a certain way. The story wants to be told a certain way. So one of the skills an author has that I don't know if I have it in a lot, but I value it quite a bit, which is versatility, and to be able to look at a story and say, I'm going to tell this certain way, such that, when I write different books, you may not even know it's right off the bat, it's the same guy writing. It just feels very different. It has a very different style. Most of my World War II stuff, it had that same kind of, staccato, simple sentence, short sentences, short paragraphs, quick thriller pace. With Castle in the Sky, I took a different approach because it was all the internal landscape of men serving on a B-17 bomber flying over Berlin at one of the most dangerous things you can do in the war, at one of the most dangerous times in the war, at one of the most dangerous places in the war. They knew they probably weren't going to get home, but they did their duty. And I was just fascinated with what was going on in their heads. And so, like, it's more like a literary type of World War II story where there's plenty of action, but a lot of going on inside their mind, the minds of people facing death, but doing it for duty.
It's beautifully written. If anyone out there is into World War II, this just fantastic.
Yeah, Garrett killed it. Yeah,
thank you.
He really.
Yeah, and I'm gonna look. Definitely, this is out now on Audible.
Yeah.
All right, put
That
the
one
link
herself
in
killed
the
it.
chat somewhere, Craig, so I can share it with people. But so Garrett, is that what you're going to read from tonight?
No, tonight I'm going to read. This is a horror webcast, after all. So we're doing a little piece from Craig's story book called "How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive."
There we go. This
Yeah,
is a
this
fun
is-
one.
Nice.
This was the almost everything Garrett and I have done together has been me self-publishing, indulging my history hobby and writing World War II stories, because I can't read a history book without then immediately wanting to develop a series around it. That's how Crash Dive started. But I don't know how it was orchestrated. It was a happy accident. You were working Hachette. I'm also a
both.
stable horror writer for Hachette.
Yeah,
and it just, the stars aligned and we ended up working together again, but this time on one of my Hachette horror releases. And the novel is called How to Make a Horror Movie and Survive. It's basically, it's more, and again, that whole idea of versatility, it's, if people have read my previous stuff, it's a little more serious. This one's a little more campy, a little more fun, a little more nostalgic. It's a story about a slasher horror director in the 1980s, and he feels like the genre is getting stale, and he wants to make the perfect horror movie, and ends up stumbling across a cursed camera that kills anyone in its lens that he cares about. And it's about him trying to make the perfect horror movie, and it's about the scream queen he loves who wants to survive the night. So the section that Garrett's going to read, it was really hard to pick out something for this because with the amount of time. So it's a little bit late in the book, maybe. So, but I think it really shows off Not so. I'm less interested in showing off what the story's doing as much as what Garrett can do,
Mm.
and with a story. So that's why we settled on this chapter. And Maestro, take it away.
All right.
Yeah, I'm going to add just a touch, otherwise it's going to get a little confusing. This is the showing of the movie that this camera and director did. And the Scream Queen is there, and hopefully you'll pick it up along the way, but she's slightly different than literally everybody else happening, or that's in this story. Sally anticipated hating seeing her overbite blown up to vast proportions on the silver screen. But that wasn't why she wanted to leave. She couldn't bear to see them all die again. Besides that, she dreaded the point in the film where she'd stopped playing a role. Because it didn't matter how talented you were. You could be Meryl Streep or Al Pacino. You could never act as well as the real thing when it came to naked terror. The one time she'd ever gotten her performance truly perfect. Jordan released a cloud of cigar smoke as she passed. Sally Priest. Yes. The camera is still safe. Yes. She'd stashed it and the spellbook. On the next full moon, let's do a general, the producer said. I've got some fresh ideas for it that'll put you on top. Though free of desire, the dead remained hungry. And these particular spirits offered a dedicated production studio specializing in lethal freak accidents. I love it, Sally smiled. My people will call yours. As things went in Hollywood, people lied all the time. She moved up the aisle to watch her mother watch the movie. Like the others, Sally was invisible tonight, her mortal coil tossing and turning in her bed back in her apartment. Astral travel, Raphael had called it during a previous visit to the dead. He was the one who taught her to tie her body to the bed frame to prevent it from trying to follow her spirit. To the moviegoers, the two front rows sat empty, occupied by a foreboding presence they instinctively avoided testing. On the screen, If Wishes Could Kill's inciting incident scene marched to its climax, making way for the rest of the story. Clutching her purse as if she was ready to bolt at a moment's notice, Maud stared with her face set in a mortified mask, a grimace of social death. Her only daughter in America's most notorious horror flick, a production that had almost killed her. Maud's idea of real horror. You were right, Sally mused. Horror movies really can create violence. Light and dark flickered across her mother's features, as if trying to imprint themselves. Sally heard her own voice on the theater speakers, joined by Claire's. Her first scene in the movie had appeared. Though she faced away from the screen, she could see it in her mind. She and her friend, lying shoulder to shoulder on a bed at a soundstage in Burbank. She stiffened, expecting Maud to stage a bitter and tearful walkout. Instead, her mom's lips curled into a slight smile. All along, Sally had missed an important fact hiding in plain sight. Her mother had always been proud of her. She'd never realized that until now. Seeing it in action was priceless. Priceless, though a bit too late. She didn't care that much about Maud's approval anymore. Bombay Beach had burned that need right out of her. Her own little hero's journey complete. While the dead shed their worries, the living traded up for entirely new ones. When it came to hang-ups, survivors had way bigger fish to fry. I love you, Mom, Sally said, regardless of what you think. I'm glad you're here, but I'm a scream queen. You'd better get used to it. Scripts kept arriving on Louise's desk. Now that wishes had slouched to Hollywood to be born, Sally could start thinking again about the future. Horror directors wanted her. Other directors did too, for everything from romantic comedies to action movies. Even studio heads like Chaz Morton, whom she'd enjoyed rejecting. Sally had ample choices, but she'd already decided to stay in horror. Despite what Max had done, the genre remained playful, accessible, boundary-breaking. She'd scream again, and the audience would love her for it. It was also therapeutic. Max had been right about that. The desire to revisit her trauma to confirm she had, in fact, survived, hoping that the next time she'd understand it. Like Max, Sally would stick with a genre that let her play with her demons. She'd relive the horror until at last the monster couldn't hurt her anymore. That's how the final girl truly won. And if that didn't work out, well, she always had the other option. Always Arthur Golden's cursed camera, craving fresh souls.
Wow.
I love that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And I think that's
Yeah.
such a great scene, and I've read the book, so I know all of the connotations there, and such great characters in that book. It's great to hear your interpretation of them, Garrett.
Thank you. It was a lot of fun to read. It's written really well. It's just campy enough to be slightly campy. It's a lot of fun. It's scary. It's just great. That's a great book.
Some very creative deaths.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome.
Nice.
And Garrett, you sent me, I just want to share this while we have a moment. This was the cover for, I think, one of your recent releases, Academy of Outcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
It just came out with Aethon producer. It's really, if anyone out there's into LitRPG, progression fantasy, this is a book for you. It's fantastic.
Okay. And LitRPG, I've seen that. Is it a shortening of literary role-playing game?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yes.
Imagine you're a character in a D&D game, and the story is told from your perspective.
Okay.
And it usually, LitRPG, like strict LitRPG, comes with all the stats, there's a system, and there's a character that becomes aware that he's in this thing. And then there's progression fantasy, which is what that is, where the characters are still interested in growing their powers and whatever they're doing, but you don't get like the stats laid out, because actual LitRPG is strength 12, 12, intelligence 15, and 4 pages. And a lot of people like that, which is great.
I can say I've never read that genre. Yeah.
It really blew up. And James, you might know Matt Dinneman.
Yeah.
He Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yep.
Like that thing. He did so well self-published that he did a hardcover deal. I can't remember who the publisher was, but that thing just flew off the shelves.
Yeah. Well, it was funny because Matt was at StookerCon in Stamford back in June, and he had signed up for the mass author signing, and he reached out ahead of time to ask us as the organizers, hey, I get a lot of people lined up for my, to have their book signed. You have a space for me. Well, and at the time I didn't realize how big those books were. And so like Brian Matthews, who works on it with me, and we were both like, yeah, I mean, how many people could come? And we had to have like 2 people, coordinating the Matt Dinneman line. It was wild. So I think people really have connected with his books. Yeah.
So that genre blew up, and then he blew up.
Yeah.
Like he blew up.
That genre took a lot of the wind out of the sci-fi sails that was pushing for a long time.
Okay.
Expeditionary Force was like the thing, and now it's still there, but everything's going to LitRPG, and it's huge.
Yeah, especially because of Dungeon Crawler Carl.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of LitRPG books now in the sci-fi section.
Yep.
Just like there's tons of horror. fantasy romance in the
Mhm.
fantasy set. It's really taken over.
Romantasy.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
Yeah,
romantasy.
romantasy.
Thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
that's 75% of what Podium Entertainment does now is romantasy.
We're probably going to see some horror mance.
Do it.
Yeah, no joke.
Get on it, Damon.
There we go.
Get on it, man.
Horror man.
Probably jump on that.
Oh, yeah, we were joking about that recently, and I think we decided it had to be called Homance. The horror romance
nice.
genre had to be called Homance.
Nice. Oh, it's nice.
But I think I'd like to ask just one last question of well, actually two, one quick one, and then one maybe a little bit more involved from Garrett, JP, and JM. I've alternated calling you in your role narrator, voice actor. Is there a preferred title for what you do? Do you prefer voice actor? Do you prefer narrator? You know,
I like
something-
narrator. I mean, when it involves, it's sort of a context thing. I've done some other voice work too, and when I'm doing like industrials or video game stuff, then voice actor. But when it comes to audiobooks, yeah, narrator.
Yeah,
I
that's a great term of art.
Okay.
yeah, agreed. Yeah.
Very good. And then the other question, and just how do you sort of change gears to do different genres? I know as writers, if we're going to write a horror story or a science fiction story or a crime story, we have to be aware that the conventions differ from genre to genre. We have to know what reader expectations are in that genre. And, you know, in horror, you can get away with not explaining things. In science fiction, you've got to have rules for everything. It's got to all make sense and, you know, be transparent, that kind of thing. I mean, do you think about that kind of aspect when you hop genres?
Yeah, actually, it helps to be familiar with the genre, and a lot of it's about the expectations of what the audience expects or wants in the first place. I just got my first romance book, which I'll be doing in a couple of weeks. And I had to actually reach out. I don't listen to romance books. So I had to reach out to a coach who's very familiar and sort of get, you know, this is how it's supposed to go. This is what it feels like. This is what your voice should be like. And you actually work with people who are experts in that field or in that genre to learn more about what I can do to be successful and not let the audience down.
So in romance, is it just kind of put on the Barry White voice and go? Or?
Surprisingly, no. Surprisingly, no. That was one of my... Because normally I do a lot of like Craig stuff. I do a lot of heavy, masculine, military, shoot 'em up, sci-fi, blah blah blah. But no, romance it's a little softer. There's a simmering undercurrent to everything that's going on, and it really draws that listener into what's going on. And you're all listening to me really intensely right now.
Yeah.
Because I'm not doing this.
Tell me more, Garrett.
Exactly.
Tell me more. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's a constant simmering and expecting. Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh no, you're right. You're right on. I mean, there are certain tropes and certain things, certain features of certain genres, but you know, you can't play genre. Right, as an actor, you play the situation, you play the motivation, you play the objective of the characters, and if that is you in context of a, you know, on the fourth floor of the Acme building, and it's 10 o'clock at night, and in she walks in, you know, and you know, you're in noir. Right, you're there because you're in the context, you're in the situation, you're being true to the action of the book and the situation, the given circumstances of the character and what they're doing. So you find genre automatically by being true to the action and being true to the situation. However, there's, you know, you can also do that and be wrong and get the genre off, you know, like so in romance, I haven't done a romance yet. I'd love to, but it's one of those things where it's really connecting emotionally to what's going on between the two characters, and if you can do that, then you've got the genre, right? It helps to have that Barry White and everything going on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. I agree. I think that in the prep for anything, genre-wise, story-wise, whatever, is like you say, it comes from the grounded base of character, of situation, of action. And I think one of the things that helped me with Damon's book, having so many characters in it, and I'm sure we all do this to some degree, is you cast your book, with the author's help and also with what you have in mind, and to give them a distinctness. I'd find myself sometimes you get, I'm sure we've all had those midnight sessions, especially in areas when you have to control noise. And I'd find myself doing something and I'd finish a chapter and I'm like, that was the wrong person or something, and you have to go back. And then you just have that moment when you realize I have to have that very clear sense of who these people are, what they are doing. And like you say, it's exactly what everyone else said. It's bringing that to life, and the genre really comes out of that, like you say, that understanding of who these people are, what they are doing, and making that real, just like I would if I were on stage, So and it's just that and more, because I'm don't often play 50, 80 people, in one show, and that's why I love this. It's so artistically rewarding because there's that challenge. Of having to create that meaningful space for all of these great characters.
Terrific. Yeah. Thank you for the insight into the process. And JM, thank you for your best Barry White voice there. That was fun.
Yeah. Gold star.
Yes. So before we wrap up, what does everyone have coming up? Damon, let's start with you. What can people look for from you coming up? Appearances,
there's a couple things. The most close to coming out is a sequel to my very first debut. Was a novelette called Abigail, which I can't even tell you what it's about, but it's kind of fantasy and magical with a little bit of horror, but I don't know. It's like an episode of The Twilight Zone, and there's such a twist ending that if I tell you anything about the book, it's going to give so much away. But Abigail is a baby who has the power to bring out the best in everyone. And it's a very topical, politically topical book. And Abigail, 2 years later, Abigail, the Terrible Twos, is Abigail ×2. And there's even more going on. So that's coming on. And I'm also in the middle of writing the Oceanox 0.5, the prequel to the Oceanox series, which is a thriller about a serial killer.
Very cool. I just love that the premise of a horror related story is bringing out the best in people.
Yeah, exactly.
I love to explain it as a horror, but I always say, don't judge a book by its cover, because the cover looks like it's a horror book, and it's like there's not a curse word in it, there's not an ounce of blood, there's a little baby saying goo goo a lot, and it's a nice book though. It was nominated for a Splatterpunk award of all the awards that it could have been nominated for, but there's a political message in it, and more so there's a humanistic message in it that's really something that's needed in our society.
All right. Well, thank you. And Craig, how about you? What's well, I guess the new audiobook has just come out that you and Garrett did, the bomber story.
Yeah, that came out earlier this year, and I'm looking to get back with Garrett. Like, and anytime I have some free time between projects, I always have to be writing. So I'll come up with something and we'll kick it out together. Well, I'll kick it out and then he does what he does. But my next major release is going to be a duology next year. It comes out in June or July, and then around November is the second book comes out, which caps off the story. And it's basically the classic summer camp slasher retold from the point of view of the bumbling deputy trope. It's basically in every all these slasher stories, you always have the deputy Dewey who shows up too late, works for the sheriff who doesn't believe the kids when they're screaming for help, and arrives too late to help and do anything other than bear witness. And this is that deputy's story and his story of redemption. And so he treats it as a murder case, and then he ends up getting in way over his head and finding out that he's actually tracking a supernatural monster a la Jason or Freddy. And so that was a lot of fun to write. And it's, and even though it's bumbling deputy, it's told straight, and it was a way to kind of revisit the classic slasher in a time when everything's campy, and say, no, I'm not going campy. I'm subverting by picking a different character in that story, but now I get to tell it straight and take it seriously and make that world feel lived in. So it's a very violent, really creepy, scary. I had so much fun writing it, and I hope it's as fun to read. But the first part, which is my publisher titled The Summer Fun Massacre, is coming out in June or July. And then the second one, the Yule Day Slaughter, is coming out in November.
The which day slaughter?
The Yule Day.
Yule Day. Oh my gosh. Okay.
Yeah. So in keeping with the slashers, and that they're always hung on a prominent holiday, these are two events in the year that are important to this town. So
that's great.
That sounds
when
brilliant.
the killer comes out and does his thing.
Do you have a narrator yet?
I did mention your name to Hachette when they send me a form saying, what's my wish list, and then they shop for narrators and do their thing. But since we work together on how to make a horror movie, I thought that they'd be interested in talking to you and seeing if you wanted to audition for this one too.
Appreciate it. Of course I will.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right. JM, do you have anything that we can be on the lookout for?
I'm working right now on a really cool book. It's Age of Sail, historical fiction about a clipper ship race from New York to San Francisco. It's called the California Run. Mark Rimmer is the author. So he's, but yeah, that's it's a pretty neat book. Very good writing. Very compelling story. You'd think, without there being, there's not any, blast 'em up, shoot 'em ups or anything like that, or in the thing, but it still keeps you interested, and it's very technically accurate.
Sounds great.
To sailing. So yeah, it's wonderful.
I'll listen to that.
That's great. JP.
Yeah. Well, I just first of all, the other big series that I have, that the third one is being worked on, is Happy Jack and the Scary Ass Book of Doom. It's on Audible now. The first and second, it's sort of a sci-fi fantasy comedy, and it's a lot of fun. And also some scripted podcasts and things coming out with Robert Jerome Productions. One is really nice. It's the story of Mary Magdalene. It's basically the Gospel of Christ told from her point of view, and I play Judas Iscariot.
Fun.
Which that was a lot of fun, and some other things. But yeah,
that sounds great too.
That's great.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. And Garrett.
Finishing up I'm book 4 of a 6-book sci-fi series from Rick Partlow called Archangel. So I'm finishing that one up in the next couple of days, and then start that romance I mentioned from an new author you've never heard of called Danielle Steele, and I'll start that next week. And then
what was that name again?
Or low profile.
You've
right?
never heard of her.
Yeah, I've never heard
Little indie Danielle Steele.
Little drop.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Right there.
Terrific. Well,
Nice.
thank you so much for taking the time to hang out tonight and talk about
for
the
inviting us.
process.
Yeah, thank you so
much.
about
It was
his work.
fun.
Great.
Thank you, Garrett, JP, and JM for sharing your readings with us. That was really terrific, and it's always a different experience, like we talked about, to hear someone else read your work.
Anytime.
So, all right.
I loved hearing what they had to
My
say
pleasure.
about their process too. I thought that was all great.
Yeah, fascinating. And
Mhm.
I feel like we just hit the tip of the iceberg. I think we could probably dig in a lot more on how all the work that goes in. And but this has been great, and appreciate it. And everyone out there who joined us tonight, thank you for coming in, and have a great night. And hopefully we'll see you. Oh, I should before we go, just remind
All right,
folks our regular Galactic Terrors session will be back next week, November 13th at 8 p.m. And we'll be hosting Rebecca Baum, Teal James Glenn, and Philip Fracassi.
Nice.
Meetings and Q&A. All right. Hope to see you all then.
Great. Thanks so
Thanks.
much.
Bye.